Motorists travelling to the neighbouring Mozambique through the Lebombo port of entry are urged to drive with caution and be vigilant on the N4 toll road, especially in the country. Traffic volumes is expected to increase on the N4 leading into Mozambique following violent post-election protests which led to the closure of the Lebombo Border post. Operations at the border resumed on Friday after they were closed for a few days following violent post-election protests. We now speak to our reporter, Nonhlanhla Jele, who's coming to us live from the Lebombo Border post. Nonhlanhla, just how dense is the traffic at this moment? Has there been a number of motorists making their way through, and what has that process been like?
Good evening to you, Oliver, and to the viewers at home. Indeed, traffic volumes just now as the sun is setting here at the port of entry. We are seeing an increased number of trucks making their way to the port of entry. We're also seeing, Oliver, a number of trucks making their way out of the port of entry. This obviously means that these trucks that are coming out are the ones that went to Mozambique during the weekend from Friday when they were allowed to start moving. If you remember correctly, Oliver, during the week when the port of entry was closed, cargo trucks were not allowed to cross over to Mozambique. You know, BMA officials citing safety concerns of the trucks and truck drivers in Mozambique. But as you can see, trucks are starting to line up and move into the processing center in South Africa at the Lebombo Border gate, and of course will move to Ressano Garcia in Mozambique. As you can see, another truck is making its way back. These trucks that are coming back now, Oliver, are some of the trucks that were in Mozambique overnight that went and crossed since yesterday, others since on Friday. But I'm also just going to show you something interesting here. Earlier on when we were here, it was quiet, but we are starting to see also a high number of people coming from Joburg who are being dropped at the gate. Obviously, these people are Mozambican nationals who are making their way back home. And as you can see, there's a taxi reversing. These taxis are also waiting for Mozambican nationals, Oliver, who are making their way to Joburg. Earlier on, we spoke to the taxi drivers who drive these taxis, and they told us, Oliver, that on Sundays especially, they come here and they take people who are going to Joburg and are moving from Mozambique to Johannesburg. So traffic volumes, of course, are going to increase, especially now, as I mentioned earlier on, that we are seeing the sun is setting and there's starting to be a whole lot of traffic. We also understand that on Sundays, Oliver, that's where they see a lot of traffic at this port of entry, especially of people moving in and out of the border. We understand that because they have businesses in places like Joburg and neighboring towns like Nasi here in Nkomazi, in Mpumalanga, they're going to be making their way into South Africa. We also spoke to some of the residents of Maputo, others from Ressano Garcia, you know, close by, who were saying to us that they are coming into South Africa to come and buy food. If you remember, their prices are quite high. Their food prices is quite high compared to what we can offer in South Africa. Others are also coming Oliver, to South Africa to come and work, you know, to make money. They said that this protest action in the last couple of days has crippled them so much that it's impossible for them to make money at home because nobody has money anymore. So now they have to come to South Africa. As you see, Oliver, the border gate, this border gate in particular, doesn't close. So of course we're going to be expecting more and more people to come into South Africa and more people to go back, Oliver, back home. Also another thing, others keep on coming into the port of entry to get their work permit stamped. If you remember correctly, some Mozambican nationals work in the neighboring farms close to the port of entry, others in the mines in Mpumalanga. So they need to yearly renew their work permits. So they come here to the port of entry and they turn back. Another interesting thing, which is something we're still trying to find out from the Border Management Authority, especially since the reopening of cargo on Friday, Oliver, is how many trucks have been processed since the border was opened again on Friday, because we understand that on a normal day, when everything is working correctly and perfectly, especially in Ressano Garcia, this port of entry, Oliver, is said to be processing around 1,800 trucks a day. So for now, we're still not sure how many trucks have been processed in the last 2 days since the port of entry was open, and also considering, Oliver, the fact that in Ressano Garcia, they're now processing manually. Yeah. This also means at a time and less trucks moving into Mozambique. So that's something that we're going to try and find out, and of course give an update to the viewers at home. Oliver?
Have you managed to speak to some of the truck drivers in South Africa? some of the pedestrians coming through the border post about what the processing is like on the Mozambican side of the Lebombo border post. What have they been able to say to you?
Of course, Oliver, if we remember correctly, the reason why the port of entry was closed was because kilometer 4, where necessarily they processed these trucks, is what was burned. So now the Mozambican counterpart to South Africa was able to get their things in order so that processing on the other side in Ressano Garcia can happen quicker. Unfortunately, the only problem now is for the trucks. The cargo trucks are the ones that struggle. Remember, even on this side, when you move to Lebombo, there are certain kilometers where trucks start getting processed, especially now that we're going to be moving into the festive season. We know there's kilometer 7, there's also kilometer 14 in South Africa, just to ease congestion on the side before these trucks and people get to the port of entry. However, in Ressano Garcia, where people get processed, that process is still running and going very well compared to kilometer 4, where trucks, Oliver, are processed at Ressano Garcia in Mozambique. So processing for passengers is quick and they're here in a minute.
Yeah. Nonhlanhla, thank you so much for that. We're going to have to leave it there. SABC News Reporter Nonhlanhla Jele.